That reminds me of like Cinemax, like when you're a kid and you're cruising late at night after your parents go to bed and you turn it on and it's like, it says like violence. You're like, bummer. You like go to Cinemax Plus and it's like violence and adult situations. You're like, oh yeah, this is the one. This is the one. Crack the Mountain Dews, boys. This is the one.
Back when Game of Thrones would like, when everyone loved it and it dropped, I just get so excited when there were good like 6 of those deep. Like you're telling me there's violence, nudity, adult situations, and profanity.
A full house.
Get my root beer, boys.
Yeah. Yep. Bad language is the one that is lame on there. You can find that everywhere. You're right.
It says bad language on it. Come on, that's not.
It says no. It says naughtiness.
It says profanity. I think.
General naughtiness. But I don't even like thinking about Game of Thrones anymore. I've totally memory hold that shit.
Yeah, I don't like thinking about it. Like it was. It's so upsetting to think about what happened there. It's like thinking back to like your team getting to a World Series or a championship and that they lost. Like it's like thinking back. Honestly, it's a little bit like thinking about when the Falcons lost to the Patriots like 4 or 5 years ago, whenever that was in the Super Bowl, when we were ahead by like 3 or 4 touchdowns going into halftime. We were in Colorado for that. I remember Taylor was like, well, Kyle, congratulations. You guys have done it going into halftime. And I was just like
28-3.
I was like smoking my gigantic bong. I'm like, no, this is the Falcons. And that's fucking Tom Brady.
I remember before the game was even over, Kyle, you were like, they weren't even in the lead yet. It was like 21-28, and you're like, Taylor, cheers, let's just play Magic. It's over.
Yeah, you could see the writing on the wall. It was like that's fucking Tom Brady. All right, he's got maybe 2 years left in the NFL. He's gonna do this. It's what he fucking does, and he's only down by 8. That's only two scores. You just knew he was going to do it. Like we couldn't stop him. You knew we were going to choke.
Well, especially the Falcons' defense, I think back then wasn't the greatest. So
it wasn't the worst either. We were in the Super Bowl for a reason. It was just like, and the offense was great. They didn't score. I don't even think they scored again. Maybe a field goal or something. It was embarrassing. It was real upsetting. But nothing tops Game of Thrones as far as like disappointments from an entertainment property. Like The Matrix comes kind of close, like, but I wasn't nearly as invested because those are movies. It's 6 or 7 hours total for the whole trilogy. But you watch the first one, you were like, oh my God, there's so much going on here. And then the second one was bad, and the third one was awful. But with Game of Thrones, what was that? 7 years of our lives or something that we were just obsessed with that show, and like it was a weekly topic when Game of Thrones was out. Like we'd come in here and we'd be like, boys, that episode, Jon Snow's back. Jon Snow's back. He's going to be doing big things. Can you believe he's got the sword now? Like we love that shit. We have these crazy conspiracy theories about like what the White Walkers were about and where they were headed and what they were going to do and ice dragons. And
you guys are going to hate my take. You're going to hate it.
All right.
But I loved it. I ate that shit up.
The end of the series?
I really did. I loved the end of the series. And I'll tell you why. Because the first 5 to 6 seasons of the show were very, very slow. They were good episodes of television, but they were very, very slow.
That's true.
If you go back and watch each season, there's 2 to 3 episodes where things actually develop pretty fast.
I used to
but
say
everything
that
else,
too.
I liked that about it, and I think Kyle did too. Like, I really enjoyed the slow burn. I feel like I'm really invested more in the world.
Totally. It's what made the last 2 seasons so awful is because it was like time was moving like a week at a time per episode forever. Yeah. It was like every episode, a week later, this happened. And then all of a sudden it was like, all right, so 6 months have passed since the last time we saw you. Like, whoa, shit. All right, 2 more months have passed. Everything was like fast forward. They were just trying to get out of that contract as fast as they fucking could so they could go make Star Wars.
That's not true, by the way. They backed out of Star Wars. But
no, they got fired from Star Wars.
No, they backed out. I mean, I just
went backs out of Star Wars.
I'm telling you, they did. And I've actually a number of people have been backing out of Star Wars because Star Wars is a fucking train wreck.
Did they back out of Star Wars before or after Game of Thrones? Because I thought it was after.
It was after Game of Thrones.
But that's not the same, right? Because it doesn't invalidate the point. If you say
also they had that contract 5 years before the show ended. I did all the research on this. I did all the research on this because people use
that proves Kyle's point. That proves Kyle's
No,
point. I'll explain
doesn't.
why.
Because they would have gotten out of it way earlier then.
Here's the scoop. They wanted to get out of Game of Thrones so they could do it. And then it wasn't until they got out of Game of Thrones that they didn't do it, right? So if they had got out of Star Wars before the show was over, then you'd be right. But because they got out of Star Wars after the show was over, that kind of proves that they were trying to get out of the show to do Star Wars. It wasn't until after the show that they did that.
If that were true, though, then they would have sped up their time getting out, and they didn't. They
did speed up their time getting out. They absolutely wrapped up. HBO was like, take several more seasons, and they're like, no, we're going to get out immediately and go do Star Wars.
That's not what they said.
That's the only thing I remember about it, and maybe Bruce, you can correct me. That's what pissed me off is like I remembered seeing the interview of HBO saying like, yeah, we offered them additional episodes, more time to really flesh the story out, and DB Weiss and whoever the other guy is were like, no, we can wrap it up in 8 episodes this season or whatever it was. And it was like, what the fuck? We really could have seen more.
This is totally true. That's the interview that I read about how HBO was like, do more, and they're like, we don't want to do more. And
that's reason enough to say fuck them, in my opinion. Yeah,
it's interesting that you guys. What's interesting too is that people turn on them so fast, and they wrote what is it, 10 seasons of show? No, a lot of people
they didn't write any of it.
They wrote all of it since the very beginning. Yeah, they did.
So it's my impression that once they stopped adapting from a book, it got bad. Right when they started doing their own material. In seasons like 6, 7, and 8, it got bad.
Again, I did the research on this. That's George R. R. Martin told them how it was going to end. He told them how the whole thing.
But they didn't have a book to base the show on anymore.
Right, they still stayed clear to his vision though, and it was kind of one of those things where like
right. But you keep saying we're wrong about things we didn't say. So what happened was when there was a book to base the shows off of, they did a great idea. They did a great job, and then once they ran out of book and had to just go off an outline at best, they did a poor job.
I mean, so you're saying the last 3 seasons were bad?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, I don't agree. I think
it was a real downward spiral starting around second half of season 5, I would say.
Oh, wow.
It started getting worse and worse.
That it really went off the rails.
6 got awful with the sand snakes and everything, and then 7 was just an abomination.
Was that the sand snake one? Where it was just like, who are these characters and why are they taking up time on the screen?
Your guys' takes are different from everybody. So some people said it went downhill last season. Some people said it went downhill the second to last season. I've never heard season 5, but okay. I mean, again, this is kind of one of those things that they were writing the show from the very beginning. Now, yes, you're right. They didn't have a book to adapt, but they made a lot of good television. And also, by the way, just so you know, it was a huge success, the biggest success HBO's ever seen. The very last season. That was
we watched it.
I feel like you can't grade it success yet because heck, the pandemic came and we all watched The Wire and The Sopranos and stuff like that. 0 people on earth are rewatching Game of Thrones. That show has no appeal. People hate it. Season 8 and 7, I'd argue, were so bad, the first 6 seasons got worse. That slow burn to wait for what the White Walkers brought, that the thing we were all so invested in, these big wars, what Jaime was going to do. It sucks now that you know. Now, it sucks. The whole White Walker thing, how they were going to possibly deal with that situation, it's gone. It's gone. Things we thought were good were made bad once we learned how it ends.
I hear you. I hear you, but what you're saying is all subjective. So
it is. It's all just our takes on it.
It's all opinion based. Yeah, because I loved it.
I think it went down in episode 1. I didn't watch any of that show because it sucks. The whole thing is
you missed a lot
What
of
are you,
sex.
medieval times? You're in zombies in space? Fucking choose one or the other. You got sandworms now? What is this, Beetlejuice? Fuck you. I'm going to watch the news like a man. I'm going to watch Jim Cramer's Mad Money like a man. You girls can go watch your dumb dragon show and your hot bitch that won't take her clothes off. Fuck HBO and fuck you.
All right. Just hold on. This whole shit about women not taking their clothes off proves you didn't watch the show.
Damn right I didn't.
Because there's some naked bitches in this show for sure.
I watched 2 seconds of that show and I saw 2 guys' cocks on the screen at one time. I said, "Oh, great! Thanks. My sister showed it to me. Thanks a lot." was like a
Now,
great
were you
show you're
upset
watching.
because they were uncircumcised or because they were cocks?
They were very circumcised. So what the hell is this shit? If you're gonna show me some cocks, make them huge. Don't show me this little average size flaccid cock shit. Give me a big dong back there so I can say, whoa, what was that? Did that thing have a license plate? Wow.
I agree, Dick. I completely agree. I want to see the biggest dicks in the world on television.
You're just walking around with absurd prosthetics on for Dick's enjoyment.
And then I'll just start shouting, that will hurt you. That would hurt you. A lot of women say 8 inches is too big. If you're getting any kind of ideas, they say it hurts. You can't even get the whole thing inside.
Is it just me, or is it weird that all these characters are black? What? Funny casting choices.
What do you mean?
That's where you find big dicks, Dick.
Canceled.
Search for Big Dick on Pornhub and tell me if you notice any patterns.
I can't say how much
my wife
The
is
door
shutting my
closes
door.
behind Woody. His wife is like, all right, enough of that.
the door closed. I didn't even see that.
Yeah, his wife comes right on that cue.
As of now, like I don't even rank Game of Thrones in one of my favorite shows ever. Not even close. And if you would have asked me that season 4, season 5 halfway through, I would have been like, oh, this is one of the tippity top. But like I didn't even watch Sopranos for the first time until this quarantine. And now after having torn through all that shit blows Game of Thrones out of the water as a series. It's got a good ending. It's got better characters. It's got better acting in a lot of ways. Like it's just fucking better. And it's coherent. A lot of people hated the end of The Sopranos too, but I didn't really get that. Maybe it's because I knew what it was going in, but it seemed fantastic to me. Like it was clearly an allusion to the fact that like
Tony's dead.
This is where he's getting nicked. Yeah, he's getting
Taylor.
I
completely agree with you. By the way, I never thought the Game of Thrones was my favorite television. Like I was never like, oh my gosh, this is greater than The Sopranos or The Wire. Nah, I thought it was a good show, but like I said early on, it was painfully slow.
I thought it was literally the best show ever made for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I maybe not the best show ever made.
Too.
Like I'm such a big fan of The Wire, but there were times when it got me so excited and like ready for the next episode, or there were times where it finally there was so much buildup before a payoff that like years would go by with like Ramsay torturing and raping, and then when he finally gets his comeuppance, you're just like, that was awesome. Yeah. That was so awesome. You know, there were lots of moments like that where people got their comeuppance, and I really liked that. You know, that when they cut Jamie's hand off, it's like, oh no. Yeah. And we were all like, he's going to get really good with his left. No, because there may be dragons, but this isn't complete fantasy. The man's no good with his left.
It's real life, yeah. No, I mean, like again, I like the show, but it wasn't. I saw the last 2 seasons, 2.5, to be the payoff to the first 5, because the first 5 seasons are again painfully slow. Go back and watch them. I really, honestly, that there are 8 episodes per season that are pretty much straight dialogue and slow dialogue. Good dialogue, but very slow.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that. I do remember sometimes I would complain, even when it was new and I loved it. Like, man, I could tell you what happened in this Game of Thrones in 90 seconds. And if I could summarize an hour-long show in 90 seconds, not a lot happened.
Yeah. No, and so just to be clear, I didn't ever think this was like my favorite television show. I'm not going to defend it till the fucking end or whatever. It was just more of I have the opposite take from everybody else. And I know I expect to get jumped on. I expect to get jumped.
Well, that's because you're sexy.
You're A-okay. We're dicking each other all the time. I wanted to ask though, because I don't follow it closely, but I do follow